were a type of cannon, the type that Pedro Menendez brought around 20 of to this site in September of 1565. He fortified this area right in through here with those 20 cannons. So that makes this the site for the first fort ever built in St. Augustine. The Bombardetta cannons were obsolete. These things were products and technology from the 13 and 1400s. The armies of Europe, they weren't too interested in those things anymore, so they were cheap to buy, and Pedro Menendez just took advantage of that. So did many of the other early conquistadors and explorers. They did the same thing. Besides being cheap to buy, they're easy to transport. That's important. Well, look how shallow the bay is. It's low tide, but even at high tide, it's not deep enough for large ships to come in here. In those early days, large ships would have to remain anchored out in the ocean, and everything had to be transferred onto small boats that could come in here in shallow water. And you could do that with those little cannons pretty easily. That's how Menendez did it. The modern cannons of the mid-1500s would have been these big old cast iron cannons they have. These things are much more powerful. They're also too heavy to try to put in these little boats and bring them in here, so they stayed out there on the ships. That cannon on the pedestal there is a prime example. That's called a Spanish long 9. It had a long barrel and it fired a 9-pound cannonball almost 2 miles. That was top technology in those days. They're kind of slow to load. What they call muzzle-loading cannons, which means everything has to be loaded from the front or the muzzle end and pushed down the barrel with a ramrod. And after the cannon's been fired, before you can even reload it again, you have to sponge it out. You have to take something like this that you dunk in a bucket of water and run that down the barrel cannon a few times to put out any burning embers for the last cannon shot before you try to reload it again. And you don't want to skip that step. So all that could take almost 2 minutes. So, yeah, they're slow to load, but they're really powerful. Now, the Bombardetta cannon is the opposite. When they made that style cannon, technology was not the same. They're using technology from the 1300s. Cannon barrel was put together by an armorer who forged welded together a bunch of parts and pieces. We have one loaded in there just like it. Now, typically, each cannon had 3 or 4, maybe even 5 servitors. Several of the gun crew could score 6 pounds solid shot, and it had an effective range that's slightly over a half a mile or less. So, yeah, they're fast to load and shoot, but they're kind of short range. That may be part of why Menendez decided this is where he wanted to fortify, because, well, the bay's too shallow for any enemy ships to come close enough. It's not so loud it's going to damage your hearing, but be careful with the little puppy dogs. Anybody else has sensitive hearing. All right, everybody's ready. Here we go.
È alto, ma sono ovviamente.
Stop! Viva San Agustin!
Viva!
Fuego!
Fuego.